Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, very grateful to be working in sports, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. I'm Sean Callanan, and welcome to episode 372 of Sports Geek. On this episode, we have a panel discussion replay from SportNXT that was hosted in Melbourne, and this was actually recorded on March 19. If you're listening to Sports Geek for the first time, thank you very much for listening. You might be doing so at sportsgeekhq.com, or you might be doing so on your favourite podcast platform. Mine happens to be Pocket Casts. I have been using it for a long time, and I recommend it highly because it works across multiple platforms. As always, you can contact me, Sean, at sportsgeekhq.com. Thanks again to the crew at SportNXT conference that held recently here in Melbourne. This chat, Amplifying Big Wins, looking at digital and how you can make the most of what you're trying to do with your digital team and really maximize that impact. I had three terrific guests on the panel: Nadine Rabar from Collingwood Football Club, Spencer Radilak from Netball Australia, and Peter Filopoulos, who's formerly been a guest on the podcast, who is now at Football Australia, talking about the tremendous success of the Matildas. All the links to the videos that we mentioned in this chat, and also links to the guests, will be in the show notes, sportsgeekhq.com/372. Enjoy. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. I've got some esteemed colleagues here. I'm not going to do their titles because we've only got 45 minutes and they're all triple banger titles. They cover multiple departments across comms and marketing and digital. And really what we want to do in this panel is talk about amplifying the big wins. So what you can do in the digital space, in social media space, but then how do you make the most of that? How do you leverage the media? And then how do you enable your team to do cool things? Because you can't just keep saying, hey, do viral stuff, but how do you set up a culture that helps make that happen? So I want to start with you, Nadine, like coming to Collingwood and sort of making that shift and sort of opening up the club from a media point of view. You come from media comms, but then also having that flow down to the digital team and sort of bring more of the fans in. What was the start of that process like at the Pies?
Yeah, absolutely. I sort of went to the Pies at a time where they had been going through challenges. So Collingwood, it's important to note, have always been very accessible. So prior to my time, they've always been a club who've embraced media, who've been out there, who've built a strong brand. So it was a period of challenges and the club was sort of coming through that. So the timing of myself entering into Collingwood, there was a bit of fortune attached to it, but relationships and trust, particularly for those who work in sporting clubs with football departments, for example, with key cogs within the club, is the most important part to start. And when you share what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go and you bring people along with it, then that element of relationship and trust allows you to increase that access. So as I said, Collingwood has had some great operators in the past in this role and others. I was able to come in at a time where a few things merged into one to allow us to take that even further.
And was it a little bit of making that slight shift, just a slight shift so it's not, because a lot of the clubs will be, we've always done it this way, and so just a slight change can be really confronting to some teams?
I think so. I think there's, in a performance industry where you're so hung up on winning and losing, it does, for football clubs especially, there is an element of if we're losing, we need to close down and focus. If you're winning, you have a bit more freedom. So it's just balancing your media approach so that no matter what the on-field result is, that it's not impacting what you're doing off the field and the stories you're telling. So from our club's perspective, we've been able to maintain a consistent access point, whether that's media or broadcast or our social media channels, and just really allow our fans and wider football fans to get to know the personalities behind the Collingwood Football Club.
Thank you very much. Spencer, I want to talk to you. One of the challenges a lot of people in the room have, especially in your sport, where you've got a lot of participants, a lot of grassroots support for netball, and then making that connection at the professional, at the league, at Super Netball. What are some of the things that you've done to help make that connection. And maybe what we can do before we do is let's see if this throwing to video works. We're going to throw to a video. We're going to throw the netball video up on the big screen, and we'll come back to you and get you to talk to this piece.
Here if you need. Here if you need. It's in our tapestry. They said if we were well behaved, we could play. We decided to do it our way. They said you play a game for little girls, so we showed them what little girls can do. Because we're not just here if you need. Nah, we are what this game was meant to be. All of us together, no matter the creed. The crowds howl and teammates cheer. The new chant ringing in your ear. We are here.
So take us through that. How does that, make that connection for you guys?
Yeah, so there's everyone in this room would probably know how big netball is from a participation base. We have over 1 million people that play it across the country. And I think netball is not any different to a lot of sports in that this is an opportunity that is in front of us in terms of engaging with that grassroots community. And I think what probably isn't really well known, when we think about our domestic competition, it's actually been around for about 4 decades. So you think about the early days, Combank Trophy when Liz Ellis was around, you think about the ANZ Championships in the early 2000s going into the 2010s. And then there was a significant transformation in the sport. We launched Suncorp Super Netball in 2017, and that came with 8 Australian franchises, with the old model had 5 and 3. And fundamentally made those changes for the right reasons. What it did do, though, was create a bit of a disconnect between our elite domestic competition with the grassroots. The where and the when and the how sort of disappeared from that, and the connection back down into grassroots had disappeared from that as well. And I think what we saw up there, which it would be remiss of me not to credit the people who are actually responsible for that work, Hannah Warren, Lauren Morgan, who's our internal video producer, TLA and Wildcard, who are our creative agency, were really critical to pulling those pieces of the puzzle together. And what that's really about is ensuring that the grassroots and the participants could actually see themselves in Super Netball. I think we've all looked at Super Netball and also the Diamonds through a particular lens in women's sport, and they've been incredibly successful for a long time. But what we wanted people to see was that we've been here for 100 years. We have stood on the shoulders of giants to get this league to a position where it's at. And the sort of take on we are here from here if you need is really about showcasing the strength and the athleticism of the sport. And we wanted the grassroots and participants to actually see, for us to market the sport, how they view the sport. And that is the first step of connecting the grassroots. And really, when we think about the role that social media plays, it's a pretty rapid fire feedback system. So when you release videos and content like this, you're pretty quickly going to understand whether or not it's hit the mark. And pleasingly, it was really positive feedback, which then stimulates a conversation around what does the evolution of this look like for us. And so in 2024, we were able to bring this to life with Woolworths Net Set Go with the tagline of "We Start Here." So our junior entry-level participants can actually see and integrate in with Super Netball and understand that their journey in netball, whether that's playing, volunteering, coaching, whatever it ends up being over the lifetime of their journey, will hopefully connect them into Super Netball and the Diamonds. And then obviously phase 2 of the Super Netball campaign, which kicks off in mid-April. So we're evolving again.
And so part of that piece of you put a lot of eggs in the basket of that big brand campaign, but then you've got that year-long piece. Did it change the brief that for your content producers and what they were doing to show and sort of continue and extend that brand campaign? Yeah,
it was a really big shift in our tone. I guess is probably the biggest thing for us. If you looked at our socials from 21 to 22 to 23, there's a significant difference in how we presented the sport to our existing base, and we used that as a leverage to attract new audiences and get back down into the grassroots as well.
Terrific. Pete, I want to talk to you about the Matildas. Like everyone in this room has seen the impact of the Matildas, and I really love the Till It's Done campaign and how that's evolved. Spencer was just talking about how the brand's evolved, but I want to dive into with you how that campaign got started and the genesis of that Till It's Done campaign. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, I'd love to. We've had a lot of fun, obviously, over the last 3 or 4 years with the Matildas. It's been an evolving story and one I've personally had a lot of fun to do. And I wish some of my team were here today. We've got a Socceroos game on Thursday because I would have loved for some of the digital marketers we've got in the business and brand marketers in the business to be here to tell the story as well. But it all started with many, many years ago about an ambitious and bold strategy to drive women's football and be the centre of women's football in Asia. And I only joined the journey 4 years ago, but the first thing we wanted to do was build a brand strategy. There wasn't really a deep brand strategy for the Matildas or the Socceroos. But I'll read to you something we did. We did an extensive piece of work with our brand agency, Holshbosh, and we worked with the Matildas and the Socceroos, and we got them in the room. And it was really about how the girls and how the boys wanted to, be perceived, how they wanted to tell their story, how they wanted to be marketing. And for me, it was a hugely powerful exercise. First of all, there's a difference. The girls were very much giving a lot of inputs. They were very excited to talk about this, and they were fantastic. The boys were a bit tougher to get stuff out of, but it was a good process. But it's just generally the way males and females are wired. But when I went back to this post World Cup, I picked it up again, and what we developed was the purpose of the brand strategy was pretty much to show the world what Australia can do. That was what we wanted to do as the brand purpose. The brand vision was a world where everyone is inspired to live and love the game of football. And some of the beliefs in the brand essence were the girls wanted to show progress. They wanted to show dream big, play hard. We, not me, celebrity and celebrate diversity and moments of magic. That's what they wanted, right? So when we were sort of finalising that brand strategy, we decided to invest heavily in the brand marketing, in the digital marketing. I'm very fortunate to have some of the brightest young creative teams in any sports, and we're executive producers, digital marketing producers, brand marketing experts. There's also a healthy tension between brand marketing and digital marketing. Brand marketing is very traditional, sort of like brand custodians, and then you have the digital marketers. And one of the things when we talk about things in the room is that I felt when I first started 4 years ago, there was a fear of creativity. There was a fear of, falling outside the lines. And one of the things I said to the team is we're going to take some risks. We're going to delve into some bold areas. We're going to take on the norms. We've always done it like this, right? And I'm going to back you. We're going to make mistakes. And guess what? I'm going to wear the mistakes. I'm going to be the complaints department. You guys are going to be the compliments department. And that's the way I still am, right? And I could see then there was the shackles were off sort of thing. And the other thing we did do was immerse the same teams into camps. So the Matildas built trust with the digital marketing team, the videographers. They knew them. They knew what to push, what not to push, how to tell stories, bring out the authenticity. That was really important for me to build trust. So the next thing is, as we were doing that, producing more content, and digital marketing, authentic stories, we wanted to come up with a World Cup campaign. We don't have massive budgets, above the line budgets. So one of the big things for us was we wanted something that was going to be viral, and sort of like grows legs on its own, through our large audiences, through our large participation base, people that jump on board the Women's World Cup, plus how our big sponsors can leverage from it. CommBank, Nike, Rebel, all those sponsors can also play with. So we went out with a brief to about 7 agencies. 3 came back and missed the brief completely. For the marketers in this room, you always get that. They just completely missed the brief. And we had 4 that were pretty good. The best one was Ogilvy. And I'm going to read to you the response, the one-page response that, sold it for me personally, Ogilvy's campaign. And it was "Till It's Done." And they said the response was, "For the world's best players, the pursuit of greatness never ends, which is why for the CommBank Matildas, there is always another match to win, another record to break. The CommBank Matildas have grit and relentless ambition. As world-class athletes, they are perpetually striving to improve their performances match after match. They are pushing beyond their limits to show the world what they're capable of. As a team, on home turf, they are fiercely down the FIFA Women's World Cup. The CommBank Matildas have a lot to prove, and they won't rest till it's done." That was for me what grabbed it for all of us, and the whole team sat through this response, and obviously we had a big matrix and assessed it. The next bit of this is you have to sell it to the leadership group, and you have to front the leadership group, and you have to front the coach. And we really spent a lot of time to present it. And they got it straight away. It was an easy thing. Not one person in that room, including the coach. And I've still got a message that the coach sent me, a voice message that Tony Gustafson sent me after we presented it, which, it made a lot of sense. So I think you've got a video.
So I think the thing is, I want a quick show of hands of the thousands in attendance. Who used the Till It's Done hashtag over the past 18 months? Right? So, but I think one of the adoptions was that it was internal, like that the team took it on and led it. And then when Tony takes it into the rooms, it makes it far easier for you to tell that story. And then once you see that starting to get some runway, you can then extend it. And so you've extended it in, post-World Cup with this video.
Yeah, so just on that for me, it's not done. Like last week we sold out Adelaide Oval, and the head of commercial said to me, I've got a new slogan for you. It's done. And I said to him, no, it's not done.
No, it's not done.
It's never done. This story is never done. And one of the most inspiring things I want to share with you is that in doing this brand strategy work, one of the things that came out was, and it really was emotional, the girl said to me, out to the group, that when they were growing up, they were playing with boys' teams. They didn't have role models in football anywhere in the world. And their role model was, Kathy Freeman was their, see it to be it, right? And that was Kathy Freeman. And one of the things we did during the Women's World Cup, we surprised them before the Women's World Cup started. We got in contact with Kathy Freeman, and we told Tony Gustafson that we've got in touch with her, and she was willing to come into camp to surprise the girls. And we did that here in Melbourne before the send-off game, and they had no idea she was coming in. And she rolled up, and she comes to all the games now, and she goes into the rooms with the girls, because the important part of that is they had Kathy Freeman as a role model, and this campaign, Till It's Done, is really important to them because they see themselves as being the inspiration for a generation of girls in the country that they didn't have. And that's the beauty of this campaign for me. So this story won't end, and everyone says to me, when's this campaign ending? Well, it hasn't got a finite period. So let's have a look.
Terrific. And it is how it has evolved. You talked a little bit about, the outset was, hey, we want to get something viral. Nadine, I wanted to talk to you about a piece of content that the Pies did, because I loved it, but I also want to sort of unpack how it started. So can we throw to that Collingwood video first, and then we'll come back to it?
To inspire you with my words, trying to show things that are maybe to lift you to another level, but I don't think I'm capable of that, so I'm going to get someone that is.
Righto, boys! First of all, I just want to thank you all so much for the hard work that you've done so far this season, going out there and doing what you do best, playing exciting footy and winning. You make us all so proud. And what a special day today in front of all of your beautiful mums and partners on Mother's Day. We're going to be out there. So go out there, make us proud. Believe in yourselves, believe in each other, chase that ball. Tackle hard. Win those contests. And when you're in front of the goals, make it count. And when you do, blow your mum as a kiss. So go out there and rip it up, boys.
So that was pre-game Mother's Day. Julie McCreery, her son, the embarrassed Bo McCreery in the crowd there. Take us through how something like that comes together and why it came together.
Absolutely. We might need Julie McCreery ahead of the Saints this Thursday night just to rev up the boys a little bit. So I think just getting straight into it, the AFL released a fixture sort of 16 weeks at a time, or however many it is at the moment, I've lost count. But The Mother's Day slot is always the most dreaded because it's the least attended. Everyone cares about their mothers more than their fathers. Sorry, dads. But they go and have lunch and they have morning tea and so forth. And so planning ahead at our club, we were like, we've got this Mother's Day fixture against the Giants from memory, and let's embrace it. Like everything, let's embrace it and make the best of it. At our club, we're focused on fun and family and footy. It's not that difficult. So how do we do that as a whole club? So we've got Tash Lewis and the team and Alana both here today. So they work in, Tash heads up the media and PR, and so does Alana. And then we've got our video team. They're not here today, but the head of digital, Luke Windsor, and we've got a marketing person as well. And they all collaborate together to be like, how are we going to bring this to life? And so two of the toughest boys in our team, Braden Maynard and Bo McCreary, they're both known for their ferocious tackling. So we got one on AFL 360 and one on Today's Show the days leading up to the game with their mums, so with flowers and so forth. And Julie, I think with Dermot Brereton at the time, was sharing how she was a coach, and we're like, oh, we're onto something here because she gave pre-match spiel. So the next day we sort of went into the coach, and I think it's well known that Collingwood pre-game we have a little skit. I don't know if I'm sharing secrets, I might be, but we have a little skit where you just lighten up the environment and the boys have a bit of fun and we all have a laugh, and then we move on and get into game mode. And we're like, oh, there's something here with the Mother's Day and getting Julie in. And so the conversations happened with the football department and the coach, and they brought that to life. In addition, we had a Mother's Day luncheon at the club, morning tea. Tash did a deal with a local florist PR company, to promise them PR, get free flowers in exchange. So after that, what you don't see is all the players got a bunch of flowers. Their mothers and partners were in the rooms waiting. So this is pre-game. They come out, they give a bunch of flowers, and it was a pretty special moment. So amplifying that was recorded. That's usually in-house. We don't share a lot of things that we record, but we thought there's something in this. The poor video team spent till about 3 a.m. blocking out boards that say territory and fight. But anyway, that's important. So they blocked those things out to be able to share it publicly. And so our media team then issued it to the mainstream media. So it was getting viral across social media. And we were like, oh, this can go wider rather than just football media. This hits mothers and Mother's Day and so forth. So, it started off getting a bit viral, and then we added a bit of the 1%ers here and there to really take off. And so on our channels alone, it had 2 million views. And I think the reach was, I don't know, I'm always a bit sceptical about reach numbers, but it says like 24 million or something, which is as big as the Australian population. But what I will say is it taught us that it's okay to have fun and to deliberately seed some things that you think might work. And then bringing people along with the journey and connecting with everything else you're doing. So, yeah, Julie on her way back to Adelaide was stopped at the airport. People knew her. She was on radio. So she had a great time. But for us as a club, it kind of encapsulated who we are and the authentic version of Collingwood externally. And people can relate to it, football fans or not. And that's sort of the content that we're finding works. As I say, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. What can people relate to, and that are not just Collingwood supporters that love football as well and love sport.
And I think the piece that in our discussions, you used the phrase of extending the shelf life of your content.
Yeah.
Like, finding new places for it.
Absolutely.
Because you're right, it's there has been, that phase of everyone's building out their own digital platforms, their own channels, and really worried about their channels. When really, like, the wildfire was, now it's on 360, now it's on, it's in the Herald Sun, now Fox Sports are promoting it, now it's over, the ABC are reporting on it. Right. And so that media angle sort of poured more fuel that sort of went back to your socials and like, we're going to keep an eye out for more content. And for the main thing for you is you want Pies fans to be coming in a little bit closer and leaning in when you're pushing out content.
Absolutely. You can recycle content so much. And so there's you just need to be a little bit creative in the way that you do it. And one example I think I shared with you was our designers, our graphics team, do a match day graphic every week. They do like 8,000 different bits of design every year. And so they do these awesome match day graphics, sometimes spend a bit too much time building them, but they're posted on the morning of a game or the night before, and then you're just scrolling through. So we have a museum at the club, so if anyone wants to come along, come and have a squiz. And we just said to the historian, wouldn't it be cool if we printed out every single game day graphic? So all of 2023 is printed out. It's on a wall in our museum, so our fans can come in explore and look and touch and have a look. And it's the same as, we'll touch on the doco a little bit later, but being able to bring things to life that people have seen in vision and to be able to feel and touch and see it and feel like they're a part of it. So that's what we're trying to do.
So Spencer, I want to talk to you about the same thing, that piece of using your media partners and being in lockstep and collaboration with your media partners to get those same results, whether it's, a current agreement or looking at what the future is and bringing your digital team into that mindset of, yes, we want more people in the stands, but we also want people tuning in, clicking on, subscribing, those kind of things. So what are some of the things you've done in that same vein of working with your media partners to amplify what netball's doing?
Yeah, I think we're pretty fortunate at netball. We have a fantastic broadcast partner in Foxtel Group. First time that we've had all 4 matches across the one channel or platform for us since a long time ago. And the other really important piece for us is our partnership with News Corp. And it also happens that they love each other. So News Corp owns Foxtel. They're both in it for the same reason. And we all want to benefit and see the game grow. More numbers watching on TV, more numbers attending the season, more people reading that content is going to benefit everyone. And so we work really closely with both of those partners. And when we sit down and design the start of the season, we work out where the production piece is going to sit. And as a broadcaster, clearly Fox hold a lot of great storytelling content attributes. And they also can amplify, but their ability to amplify really sits around their broadcast piece. And so for us to engage new audiences, for us to engage our existing audience base, we need to lean into our other partnerships. Netball's got great channels, but News Corp also works in that mix for us as well, so that we can actually cut up the content and deliver it through exclusive PR opportunities with News Corp, so we can start to drip feed things through there, and then it runs across our channels, which can also bring to life, as Nadine said, you can cut that up as much as you need to throughout the year and give a slightly fresh take, or you can actually use a moment in time to say, hey, remember what happened back here, and bring it back to life again. And News Corp plays a critical role for us in doing that, and I think as we move forward, particularly with the News Corp partnership, what we're looking for is probably an audience outside of sport. So move away from the traditional Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday newspaper readers of sport and think about, as a sport, we will grow by growing the profiles of our athletes and growing the profile of our sport. And as a women's sport, we absolutely want to make the heroes from today, the next heroes for tomorrow. And the likes of Liz Watson, Kate Maloney, all of those athletes, they deserve to be up in lights, and they deserve the profile as the Australian Diamonds captain, who is the most successful netballer going around in the world at the moment. And we want to use our partnerships to try and tell their story, which actually benefit all of us at the same time. So we would expect that News Corp, they do deliver, is actually providing the profile pieces outside of sport, which actually tap into a new audience.
Absolutely, and it gets into those athlete stories and being close enough to the action to be able to tell them. Yeah. Pete, a big part of what the FA did with the Matildas was that investment into the team that follows and is connected with the high performance side of the Matildas in equal measure with the Socceroos. How important was that, first of all, and like getting that over the line to say, hey, we need the team there, but then how instrumental was in that the growth that they've seen over the last 2 years?
Well, we made a deliberate decision 4 years ago. We unbundled the professional league. So the asset we had, the Socceroos and the Matildas. And when I looked at it 4 years ago, the Socceroos was the preeminent strong brand and the Matildas was the evolving, growing brand 4 years ago. And we really needed to lift the Matildas to equal status in prominence and appeal in the marketplace. That meant an overinvestment. We needed to overinvest, and that came with its challenges, because the thing I grappled with, the Socceroos used to be used to all the limelight, and I'd often get phone calls and go, why are you advertising or doing this with the Matildas when the Socceroos are playing on the weekend, whatever? And my approach was, we have got 2 national iconic brands and they're both strong enough in the market. That's where I see it. And we're going to be able to talk about things concurrently. We shouldn't be parking one for the other. That's not happening, the rising tides effect. So we really deliberately decided to do that. And part of that strategy was all the digital platforms, the Disney documentaries, brand building exercises, campaigns, snack bite content, bringing out authentic stories. It was really important to do that. Where we were 4 years ago, we are now there. Both have got 1.7 million followers. The Matildas were probably $1 million off the Socceroos 4 years ago. That's where they've caught up. And the investment paid off. To your question, we had to demonstrate the success and the return and all the metrics. So we overshared metrics internally to the CEO's office, to the board, to show why we need to invest to do this. And to be quite honest, we had a lot of fun doing it. And also the approach of no fear, take risks, and bring everybody along on the journey. So.
And that piece, I think, also from an athlete point of view, I know when I started Sports Geek and I was doing those initial social media training and telling athletes what to do and not to do on social media, which I still do because they still do some silly things. But now the generation of athletes coming through are digital natives. Like they're truly grown up on those platforms. Nadine, has that helped you when you're trying to get into that inner sanctum and working with athletes and also working with coaches that have grown up with it, that sort of just, they're watching Drive to Survive on Netflix, that's what the content they're consuming. Does that help you in your role when you want to do more of that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I still think it goes back to relationships if it's going on board with where the club wants to go as a whole. And if you've got those relationships with the athletes in the program, both men and women athletes, and you're able to experiment and do things a little bit more differently. What we found and what I found is a footballer, male or female, are so worldly, and we sometimes dismiss that, or we think that, they're really boysy or so forth. Our program, the men particularly, they are so progressive, and whether that's their views on the world, whether that's their knowledge of social media, their curiosity of media generally, and they come in and sometimes I learn more from them around what's the latest TikTok trend than, them learning from our department. So I do think that having grown up with it, there are some athletes who still think they are better off without social media, and that's okay because there are some challenges that come with it when you're a high-profile athlete. But what we have seen is that there is a willingness to lean in. I think 10 years ago even, footballers would be like, no, I don't want to take part of this, I don't want a bar of it. But right now, our teams don't find it challenging to approach a player and engage them in a bit of social content or a bit of fun. And then even our coaches, we had a photo day recently and the coaches kind of wanted in on the action, throwing a ping pong ball onto a glue stick or whatever we did, something silly. But again, it's embracing it, but just showing who you are. And I think the more that you show who you are, the better you can connect with audiences. So, I do agree with you. I think the players... opening up the access and doing more of that stuff, your coaches, your players are just getting more comfortable. Absolutely. And it sort of allows you to give you the runway to do something like that, take the steps, Doco. Absolutely. So last year we sort of deliberately tried to normalise having cameras in all the meeting rooms, having coaches mic'd up when they're speaking so that it doesn't become a thing. So if you do it in round one, when finals comes around, it's not new and the coach knows how to coach whether they have a microphone on them or not, whether there's a camera in the room or not. And there's a trust in the system to be able to, we're not going to use this if it doesn't benefit our club or our strategy as well. And so, the documentary, for example, I'm going ahead to your next sort of question, Anna. I'm allowed to do that? Cool. I think the documentary was one where on the eve of the finals, again, this gut feel of hey, this could be part of something special. And I don't think Collingwood's allowed to live in the past anymore, so I won't dwell on 2023. But what I will say is that we have a team of some genuinely talented creatives and video producers, and similar to what you said, I'm old now and I'm sort of Gen Y, and whatever gen you are, but they're so talented and they want to produce something and then bringing the football program. So doing a proper documentary where there are characters and there's protagonists and there's a storyline, and we have a coach who is just Ted Lasso-like in the way that he approaches life and football. We've got a captain who talks about the loneliness of being a captain and being a leader and his identity and what he's working through as a person. And then you've got a veteran in Scott Pendlebury who's almost, just such a hardened athlete and just almost OCD in the way that he goes about it, but closer to the end than the start. And then you've got a young guy, Nick Dacos, who's just, his eyes are just so bright and, has his whole footballing future ahead of him, and but has a challenge with his knee leading into the finals series. So being able to capture their stories, but the broader club story as well, was something that we shoved a 12-month process into about 3 months because we were just dead set on getting it out before this season starts. And, thanks to Hoyts because they came on board and I know you're recording this, but we broke every rule in cinema to get that in cinemas. And I think, sorry to the films out there that have $6 million marketing budgets. We had zero. And we sort of, the power of football, the power of Collingwood supporters, how much the game means to people. You just saw cinemas filled with people wearing black and white merch, watching a doco that a footy club digital department brought to life. And so those things you sometimes lose sight of. But being able to do that, again, with the access that we're fortunately provided with, and I say that because there's no football department and administration department, it's just the Collingwood Footy Club, and we all work together really well. And I do believe that's a point of difference across the competition. And then that allows us to have a little bit more fun and be a bit more innovative, and we'll get some things wrong. I mean, last week we had a couple little losses. That's okay. The world's not going to end. It's footy. So, yeah, I think that's sort of...
So the only point I'll argue with you is you said you're old, so I won't have any of that. But Spencer, I did want to talk to you about understanding the different platforms, what they might offer, whether it be TikTok, and building a culture where you are taking direction from your staff. Like they're using those platforms like TikTok more. You can still give those broad guidelines of here's what we want from our messaging and brand, but when it comes to an execution and trends, you want to be getting the advice from people who are using it and living those platforms. How do you do it at netball? Yeah,
I think we are blessed with, again, exactly the same as these guys, a really talented creative team who are far younger than I am. I won't say I'm young either. I think where we would look at new platforms, new channels, is really around growth. And people say fish where the fish are, which is a pretty common saying. But if you use the wrong bait, you're not going to hook into any fish. So we go into any of those new channels or new platforms with a really considered approach. I think our job as leaders is to create a strategy, create a vision that our teams can actually dictate the how we get there. And ultimately, there will be some failures along the way, but it's just sport. It's sport that's really important to a lot of people, but those sort of little hiccups along the way are how we all learn. It's how we all got into the positions that we're in as well. So we've got to allow a level of autonomy to our teams to be able to go out and do the things that they know work with the audience that they're looking for. So we provide autonomy, and unless the building's on fire, then we're okay.
All right, we've got 2 minutes. We're going to go some quick hitters. Start, bench, cut, social media edition. TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. I'll start with you.
We've only just started the...
Come on, just quick. These are quick hitters.
Okay, so what were the options again?
Start, bench, cut. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter.
Instagram, start, TikTok, bench, cut, Twitter.
Pete?
Start, TikTok. What was the other one?
Instagram.
Bench,
Instagram.
No.
Well, you got to cut Instagram. That's what it is. It's start, bench, cut.
All right. Well, we'll start TikTok, bench Instagram. Yeah.
And cut Twitter. Well, that's what's left.
Yeah, I'm cutting Twitter. I'm benching TikTok, big spy stuff, and then starting Insta. So.
All right, stay down there then. What's going to have more video views for you in 2024, vertical or horizontal?
Vertical.
Horizontal still.
Okay. Social media copy, should it always be under 140 characters, yes or no?
Yes.
Depends.
It's not a yes or no. And the last one, would you like Taylor Swift to support your team or sport?
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I have to say that contractually, because we run NFL channels in Australia, and funnily enough, 60% of our TikTok audience is female. So thank you, Taylor. Wow. $330 million in media value to the NFL in the last 12 months. So I hope that you all get Taylor Swift on board as a follower, because we don't have KPIs anymore. We call them Kelsey performance indicators. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much to my panel.
Thank you.
Looking to help your digital or sponsorship team? Book in for a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan to help your team level up. Book now at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to Hamish Anderson and Lee Mooney for the invite to collaborate with SportNXT. I really did enjoy participating in the conference. It's the third time I've been at the conference, first time collaborating with them. If you've been listening to the podcast, we had 2 episodes prior to SportNXT with Jen Watt and Andrew Ryan. I really highly recommend you giving those a giving those a listen, as well as this panel discussion replay. If you haven't attended SportNXT, please check it out. Put it on your to-do list for next year. Brings in a lot of great minds and a lot of great discussions to my hometown of Melbourne, where sports business is a big business. And it was great to catch up with so many podcast guests at SportNXT, but also so many podcast listeners. It's always great to reconnect with both listeners and guests. If you did attend SportNXT, don't forget you have until April 19 to claim your Pick My Brain offer, which gets you a 2-hour video call session with me for 50% off. All you've got to do is email me, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com, if you were an attendee at SportNXT for the booking link. These are great. Either you want a one-on-one sounding board session to review or sense check some of your plans or your strategy or what you're planning to do, or it can be a group brainstorming session to come up with or tweak or look at content that you're doing or platform strategies. Or it can be a, hey, how do we take some of the learnings from SportNXT and look at the execution and implementation phase? There's some of the ways that people are using those Pick My Brain sessions, or it could be a purely educational session saying, hey, can you talk to us about the latest trends in digital or specific aspects of our digital to dollars process. So if you attended SportNXT and you've listened to this because you missed it, please send me an email, Sean@SportsGeekHQ. Happy to send you that link for that 50% off Pick My Brain. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.